Picture a converted Boeing 707 flying over Saudi Arabia at 30,000 feet. Inside, instead of passengers, there are 17 radar operators sitting at computer consoles staring at screens. They're watching every vehicle moving on the ground in Iraq and Kuwait, everything, tanks, trucks, artillery, even individual soldiers in some cases. They can see through darkness, through sandstorms, through smoke. A Iraqi tank battalion moves 50 miles away and they see it instantly. They radio the coordinates to an F-15 Strike Eagle. 10 minutes later, that battalion doesn't exist anymore. This isn't science fiction. This was JSTARS, Joint Surveillance Target Attack Radar System, and it was still experimental when Desert Storm started. By the time the war ended, it had changed warfare forever. Welcome back to Gulf War Chronicles. Today we're talking about the aircraft that gave coalition forces God's eye view of the battlefield, JSTARS and AWACS. These flying radar stations orbited high above Iraq, watching everything that moved, directing fighters to targets, coordinating the entire air war, and providing ground commanders with real-time intelligence about Iraqi movements. Iraqi forces couldn't move without being seen. Couldn't hide, couldn't surprise coalition forces, couldn't maneuver without coalition knowing immediately. And the Iraqis had nothing like it. They were blind while the coalition could see everything. JSTARS was so new it was technically still in testing when Iraq invaded Kuwait. The Air Force had only 2 prototype aircraft. They hadn't even entered full production yet. But the capability was so valuable that the Pentagon rushed both prototypes to the Gulf. They arrived in January '91, just days before the air war started. Over the next 6 weeks, those 2 aircraft would fly 49 combat missions and prove their worth so decisively that JSTARS became a permanent part of the Air Force arsenal. The technology is remarkable. JSTARS has a 24-foot-long radar antenna mounted under the fuselage. This synthetic aperture radar can detect moving vehicles on the ground from hundreds of miles away. It works day or night, through clouds, through sandstorms, through anything. The radar can track hundreds of targets simultaneously, distinguish between different vehicle types, and provide precise coordinates for targeting. Inside the aircraft, operators watch screens showing every vehicle moving on the battlefield in real time. Major Bill Grimes was a JSTARS operator during Desert Storm. He described the capability as revolutionary. We'd be orbiting over Saudi Arabia, completely safe, and we could see deep into Iraq. Convoys moving, tanks repositioning, artillery displacing. We'd identify targets, pass coordinates to fighter aircraft or ground units, and watch the strikes happen in real time. The Iraqis had no idea we could see them. They'd try to move at night thinking they were hidden. We saw everything. The impact on the air war was immediate. Before JSTARS, finding moving targets was difficult. Aircraft would fly to an area, search visually or with onboard radar, maybe find something, maybe not. With JSTARS orbiting above directing them to targets, strike aircraft knew exactly where to go. No wasted time searching, no fuel burned hunting for enemies. JSTARS would spot an Iraqi convoy, vector F-15s or A-10s to the location, and those aircraft would arrive with targets already identified. The kill rate skyrocketed. During the ground war, JSTARS became even more valuable. Coalition ground commanders could call JSTARS and ask what was happening ahead of their advance. JSTARS operators would look at their screens and provide instant intelligence. Iraqi units in defensive positions 3 miles north, tank battalion moving east, artillery battery displacing to new location. This real-time battlefield awareness was unprecedented. Ground commanders knew what they were facing before they made contact. The Battle of 73 Easting is a perfect example. JSTARS detected Iraqi Republican Guard units and tracked their positions. American tank units advancing toward those positions had complete intelligence about enemy strength and location before engagement. No surprises, no ambushes, just precise knowledge of where the enemy was. That information advantage contributed to the lopsided American victory. JSTARS also tracked the Iraqi retreat. When Iraqi forces started fleeing Kuwait, JSTARS watched the entire exodus. Operators could see convoys forming on Highway 80, track their movement north, provide targeting information to strike aircraft. The highway of death happened partly because JSTARS saw the traffic jam developing and coordinated the airstrikes that destroyed it. From 30,000 feet, JSTARS operators watched the entire battle unfold on their screens. AWACS, Airborne Warning and Control System, complemented JSTARS perfectly. While JSTARS watched ground targets, AWACS watched the skies. AWACS is a Boeing 707 with a 30-foot rotating radar dome mounted on top. It can detect aircraft hundreds of miles away, track hundreds of targets simultaneously, and coordinate fighter aircraft across the entire theater. Every coalition aircraft in Iraqi airspace was monitored and directed by AWACS. The AWACS crews became air traffic controllers for the war. They'd vector F-15s to intercept Iraqi fighters, coordinate strike packages hitting Baghdad, manage aerial refueling rendezvous, provide early warning of Iraqi aircraft taking off, and ensure coalition aircraft didn't accidentally shoot each other down. The air war's complexity required this level of coordination. Without AWACS, the carefully choreographed air campaign would have been chaos. Captain Linda Hayes was an AWACS controller during Desert Storm. She said managing the airspace was incredibly demanding. You'd have 200 coalition aircraft in Iraqi airspace at once. Fighters, bombers, tankers, reconnaissance planes, all operating in the same crowded sky. We tracked everyone, made sure they stayed separated, vectored fighters to targets, warned them about threats. If Iraqi fighters took off, we'd see them immediately and direct F-15s to intercept. The Iraqis couldn't surprise us because we saw them the moment they left the ground. The combination of JSTARS and AWACS gave coalition forces complete situational awareness. They knew where every friendly aircraft was, where every enemy aircraft was, where ground targets were moving, all in real time. This information dominance was as important as technological superiority in weapons. You can have the best fighter jet in the world, but if you don't know where the enemy is, you can't use it effectively. JSTARS and AWACS ensured coalition forces always knew where everyone was. Iraqi forces had nothing comparable. Their ground-based radar was destroyed in the first days of the air campaign. Their airborne early warning capability was minimal. They were fighting blind while coalition forces had perfect vision. Iraqi commanders would order units to move, not knowing JSTARS was watching and coalition aircraft were being vectored to attack. Iraqi fighters would take off, not knowing AWACS had detected them, and F-15s were already moving to intercept. The psychological impact was significant. Iraqi forces knew or suspected they were being watched from above, but didn't understand how completely. They'd try tactical maneuvers thinking they had surprise, only to be hit immediately because JSTARS had seen them moving. The feeling of being constantly observed, unable to hide or surprise the enemy, degraded Iraqi morale and made commanders hesitant to maneuver. After Desert Storm, JSTARS and AWACS became essential. The Air Force bought more JSTARS aircraft and integrated them fully into doctrine. AWACS, which had been in service since the 70s, proved its worth definitively. Every major air operation since '91 has used these aircraft. Bosnia, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq in 2003 all employed JSTARS and AWACS for battlefield management. The technology continues evolving. Modern versions have better radars, more powerful computers, improved displays. But the basic concept proven in Desert Storm remains: put radar platforms high above the battlefield where they can see everything, and use that information to coordinate operations. The advantage this provides is so overwhelming that no military can operate effectively without it. For troops on the ground, JSTARS and AWACS were invisible but essential. Ground units didn't see these aircraft orbiting miles above. They just experienced the benefits: accurate intelligence about enemy positions, air support arriving exactly when needed, no Iraqi air attacks because AWACS directed fighters to destroy Iraqi aircraft before they became threats. The technology worked best when it was invisible. The contrast with previous wars is stark. In World War II, battlefield commanders operated with limited information about what was happening beyond visual range. In Vietnam, reconnaissance took time and information often arrived too late to act on. In Desert Storm, commanders had real-time information about everything happening across the entire battlefield. That's a revolution in warfare. If you worked with JSTARS or AWACS during Desert Storm, either as crew on those aircraft or as someone using the intelligence they provided, leave a comment below. The story of these flying radar stations doesn't get the attention tanks and fighters get, but their impact on the war was arguably greater. Thanks for watching Gulf War Chronicles. JSTARS and AWACS represent a different kind of weapon, not kinetic, not explosive, just information. But information dominance wins wars as surely as superior firepower. When one side can see everything and the other side is blind, the outcome is predetermined. These aircraft flying high above the battlefield, safely out of danger, coordinating strikes and providing intelligence, they might have been the most important weapons in Desert Storm. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. We're telling the complete story of Desert Storm, including the technology that operated invisibly but made victory possible. I'll see you in the next one.